Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Chief Sweet. Today I'm going to talk about everything you need now that you have a bearded dragon. This is a bearded dragon starter kit video. So first on the list is a home. You want an enclosure for your bearded dragon, which most people go to a pet store, and when they go to a pet store they get an Exoterra, which is or a Zoo Med. They're a 40-50 gallon tank which measures 36 by 18 by 18 inches. And this is okay for a baby bearded dragon. When I mean baby, I mean less than 10 inches long. Now, when you get above to 10 inches and above 10 inches, you're gonna wanna get a much larger enclosure. Now, for adult bearded dragons, I recommend a 4x2x2. However, a lot of people have trouble maintaining temperatures in their house. Say you live in a colder environment. You live around Alaska or Montana and it's cold very often. You might want to go for a 4-foot long enclosure, 2 feet wide, but 18 inches tall. So that way your basking spot has it can get closer to the basking zone and heat up properly. Because this is going to upset a lot of people in the bearded dragon community, but I'd rather have people have ideal temperatures for your bearded dragon than not ideal temperatures. Because if you don't have ideal temperatures for your bearded dragon will get sick. And one thing I noticed, I've been recommending 4x2s for years now, and one thing I do notice is that people cannot get proper temperatures in the tank. They have, most common tank that people get is a Dubia Roaches enclosure. It's a 4x2x2. It's one of the cheapest on the market. It's like $270, I think. And a lot of times what I recommend is moving the basking spot up. Get some like cinder blocks, some rocks. A lot of people get these from Home Depot. They're like these little stepping stones. I don't know what they're called, but they're terracotta stones, basically cinder blocks, and they stack them up and you kind of raise your basking spot. And you can do that. That's how you would get an appropriate basking zone inside of a 4x2x2. But a lot of times people have different decor, they do it a different way, and they just can't get the proper temperature. If you think you might be that person, you just live in a really cold area and you have a bearded dragon, I do recommend a 90-gallon enclosure, which is, like I said, is a 4x2 by 18 inch enclosure. Now, if you are just one of those people who you bought an Exoterra at a pet store and you already have the stuff that you kind of have already, you can keep the baby in a 40-gallon enclosure like the Exoterra for a little bit. But once they reach about 10 inches, you're going to want to upgrade. So keep that in mind. Even though you have this tank, eventually you're going to have to upgrade. Moving on to lighting. Now, you are going to need certain things with bearded dragons. The number one, I say the number one thing for a bearded dragon is lighting. Next is diet. So lighting is incredibly important for your bearded dragon. You're going to want a T5 high output UVB lamp, and it has to be linear. I mean, it's a tube. You need a tube style. If you see the coil ones that kind of look like a regular light bulb, throw that out. Those are terrible. They provide little to no UVB, and your bearded dragon needs UVB to properly live and survive. If he doesn't get it, he could get metabolic bone disease, where his bones could become brittle, break easy. He could become lethargic, sickly, not wanting to eat. It's very detrimental to their health. You need a T5 high output UVB lamp. And a lot of people are like, what about T8? T8's old school, old technology. We moved on. T5 is the newest, best high output thing you want to get. And that's what you get. Arcadia is a very good brand to get. Arcadia 12 to 14%. If you have a Dubia Roaches enclosure, you just bought one, get a 14% Arcadia. If you're gonna mount it on the inside of the enclosure, you can get a 12%. Zoo Med is another great option for UVB. A Zoo Med Repti Sun, I believe is what it's called. I use Arcadias, but you can use a Zoo Med as well. Get a 10.0 UVB bulb. You need a 10.0 and a 24-inch for an enclosure for a bearded dragon. That's a minimum UVB requirement. You get 36 inches if you want to. I use 24 inches for all my bearded dragons. However, some bearded dragons I have do have a 36-inch UVB bulb. You need a UVB bulb. You have to have it, okay? Bearded dragons cannot live without it. You need UVB. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's very essential to their health. Now that we got UVB out of the way, you can go for heat lamps. We need a heat lamp to heat up the bearded dragon. And what this is a halogen heat lamp. You get these, they're Repti basking bowls from Zoo Med is the most popular one. It's at PetSmart and all that stuff as well. And this really depends on where you live again. Say you live in Texas, it's extremely hot. You might only need a 75-watt bulb to heat your enclosure. Say you live a little bit up north and it's kind of cold. You might need a 100 to 150-watt heat bulb to heat your enclosure. You might even need need 2 heat lamps to heat your enclosure. And how big is your enclosure? Do you have a 10-gallon tank? I know I really recommend do not put your lizard in a 10-gallon tank, but I do see it quite often with new people. They get a bearded dragon, they get a 10-gallon tank, and they have my recommendations for this video is 40 gallons and above. Anything below that is just too small for a bearded dragon, even for a baby bearded dragon. So 40 gallons and above is what I'm recommending for this video. So remember that and keep that in mind. So you do need a heat lamp, but it really depends on where you live. I recommend between 75 and 100 watts. You can go 150, and dang, if you live in a hot place with no air conditioning, you're just one of those people who live like a lizard, then you might only need a 50-watt bulb. And how you know what bulb you need is you need a temp gun. Another thing you need right there is a temp gun. I have all this linked in my description. So a temp gun you're going to want to have because you're going to have to check the temperature of the rocks or the wood of wherever your bearded dragon basks. And now the bask, what I mean by that is where he sits and soaks the sun up, because reptiles need heat in the sun, and we mimic that with UVB and heat lamps. Next up is substrate. What is substrate? Substrate is the dirt of the terrarium. What kind of dirt do we want to provide for the bearded dragon? Now, you might have reptile carpet because that's very common. A lot of people get reptile carpet with their bearded dragon for the first time. I do not recommend reptile carpet. I used to use reptile carpet. It's okay, okay? A lot of things, if I recommend in this video and it's not good and I tell you how bad it is, trust me, I've been there and so has everyone else. It's a very common in the hobby for people to jump into a pet store, get all these supplies, and find out half of them are terrible and dangerous to your pet. It's just... And you're probably wondering, why are they dangerous to my pet? Well, it's because back in the day, we thought they were gonna be good when the first time in the hobby. And then eventually over time, we realized they were bad. But since they make so much money anyways, they really don't want to pull them from the market because they're a business and they still have to run. And that's their bottom line. They make most of their money from that. If they pull it, it's really gonna hurt the company. And everybody now obviously is experiencing money troubles. So that's why they don't want to do it. And you see these harmful reptile products marketed towards bearded dragons and stuff like that in the market, and then you get it and you realize, wait, this isn't good. What the heck? Why are they still selling to, bearded dragon owners who are new? And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. So if you have reptile carpet, throw it out and get some good natural substrate. Some people actually don't use substrate. You can use tile. I will say that. Some people use like the concrete bricks, like they're flat pieces, and they lay them in their enclosure. You can use that as well. I do recommend substrate myself because I use it. Everybody has their own preferences. You can do what you want to do with that. They even have some like tile, like almost like roll out like mats that are not reptile carpet, because you could wash them off. Reptile carpet, it will clean that bacteria in there and hold on to it. And their bearded dragons get their toe stuck, rips them off, stuff like that. They have some new stuff that's a little bit updated, and if you want to do that, you can. But substrate I recommend is none inside of a pet store usually. I use play sand and organic topsoil and a little bit of peat moss from Home Depot. I have a video on my channel on how to make it, but not only that, I use gravel from where I live to make it real nice deserty looking, but you can never find that anywhere. But that has changed. ExoTerra now sells this thing called Stone Desert. I like to get that bag and put it on top of that layer, so it almost actually becomes a real natural dirt-like, desert-like substrate. I love it. And so I like to do is you could do topsoil and sand on the bottom, mix that together. I like to do like a 60-40 ratio, 70-30, really depends on you, how you want it to look. It's very cheap to get that. Organic topsoil is like $3 and play sand's like $5, so $8, and it's a lot. You're gonna be getting 90 pounds of substrate from that because the topsoil is usually 40, the play sand's usually 50. They don't sell smaller bags. So you can get those two, mix them together, throw that down as a base substrate, and then get the Stone Desert and put that on top. If you just want to use Stone Desert by itself, you can do that as well, because I really love the Stone Desert ExoTerra substrate. It looks amazing. Highly recommend that. So that's what you could use as substrate. There's other safe substrates as well, but that's what I use, and that's just going to be a quick referral. What not to use is walnut shells, which you get at reptile stores. Reptile carpet, again, you find those at pet stores. The sand, calcium sand, do not use calcium sand. It's not natural. Most of the stuff, all three things I just told you, which they sell and market towards desert animals, are not natural. Where's the calcium sand dunes on Earth? No. Where are the reptile carpets on Earth? Where's the reptile carpet fields in the wild? No, you want naturalistic substrate because you have a piece of nature and you want to provide that to your reptile. So we got dirt for the enclosure, lights for the enclosure and the enclosure itself. Let's add some hides. You're gonna want at least 2 hides for your bearded dragon. One on the cool end, one on the hot end. I usually try to do 3 at least, but these are big bearded dragons. And once they get big, you're gonna realize it's gonna be kind of hard to find a giant hide that's almost 2 feet long for your bearded dragon. I like to use cork bark. You could honestly use anything. Get creative. Tons of people make creative ideas. I use cork bark myself. You could use whatever you like to use. I've seen some people, there's these snake hides that are plastic. They put spray foam around it, put some, cut the spray foam to look like a rock, like sanded grout on there, paint it, and it looks like a rock. And you could do that as well. However you want to do it, hides are up to you, but you do need hides for your bearded dragon. Cork bark is my favorite. I get it from Pangea Reptiles, very cheap. You get, for 50 bucks, you get a 5-pound bulk box, which is awesome. That's how I get my hides, at least. Moving on. Next up is branches and rocks. Bearded dragons are semi-arboreal, which means they like to climb. In the wild, you can find them climbing trees, climbing fence posts. They climb pretty good. I even sold a bearded dragon to one of my followers like last year, and he sent me a picture of his bearded dragon. He let it sunbathe, and it was climbed a tree, like a little palm tree that was just vertical. He's all the way up there. She was just sitting and hugging it, had her body soaking up the sun. I was like, wow, that is crazy that they still have those naturalistic instincts, even though they've been bred in the United States. Like I said, that's why we try to mimic nature inside of the terrarium. Branches, you can honestly get them online from like websites like sanded grapevine, stuff like that. However, if you don't want to spend money on branches, I just go collect mine from outside. I have videos on how to sanitize that, but you don't have to really sanitize a branch if you go cut it off of a tree. You go cut off a tree, remember to stay away from cedar and pine trees, those kind of like Christmas tree-like trees. Stay away from those. Oak is a very safe wood to use. You can use oak wood, and it's very popular all in the United States and other places as well. So oak trees are very popular. And if you live in a suburb or like an area where you can't cut down a tree, then that's where you're just gonna have to go online, buy one off of like Pangea, Amazon. There's tons of places that sell pieces of wood. But I do get mine from outside, chop it off, because it's just wood. It's safe. It's going to be safe if you put it in your enclosure. There's nothing different about it. You want to sanitize it if it's on the ground, though, because it might have termites. It might have ants. So that's why you want to sanitize it if it is on the ground. But if you cut off a tree, most of the time they're not going to have anything on there because it's a live tree. It's not on the ground getting decomposed by worms and all kinds of stuff. Now, for rocks. I do like to put rocks in my enclosure because it's a desert. And I also get my rocks from outside. But say you live in a suburb again, if you don't have access to going to find rocks outside, what you can do is you can go to Home Depot and Lowe's and get those cinder blocks that I was telling you about, flat cinder blocks. Very easy to find. You can get the little kind of square ones and stack them up on each side and get the big square one and put it on top. You have a nice basking spot. Also makes a hide on the hot end, and it's rough because a lot of times when bearded dragons shed, they want something rough to rub on, like rocks, and they like to rub off their shed of their skin, so you do want some rocks in the enclosure. I like to put it on the hot spot because a lot of times the rocks will absorb the heat very well from the heat bulb, and that creates a nice basking zone. There's a lot of times, if you go into the wild and you see lizards hanging around some rocks, that's why. So that's why I like to add rocks into the enclosure, extra stuff. You can add plants into the enclosure, especially with naturalistic substrate like I recommended. You can add, there's a list of plants, safe plants. I'll make a video about them as well. I have everything linked in the description for other videos like care guides, deeper feeding guides, all that type of stuff. But this is just a starter kit. You can add plants if you want to, live plants. If you add fake plants, a lot of times I would not recommend adding fake plants because bearded dragons do eat plants. So they will start eating fake plants if they see it. They're going to try to buy it, and you'll notice that. So I don't use any fake plants for my bearded dragons because in the past I've tried it, and they always tried to eat it, and I do not want them getting caught in their stomach and them dying from that. Last but not least is some electronics and food. So electronics, what do I mean by that? I mean some thermometer hydrometers, tells you the temperature and humidity in your enclosure. And like I said earlier, you want the temp gun as well. You want to be checking with that temp gun because what if you have a heat lamp and it's 190 degrees on a rock inside your enclosure? Not only is it dangerous to your reptile, it's dangerous to you. Do you want to start a fire? I don't think you want to start a fire. So it's really good. You really want a temp gun. You really want a temp gun, test that out. Because if it's 190 degrees, your bearded dragon's not going to sit on there. And if it does, he's going to die. It's going to roast them and kill them. So you want to make sure that it's safe for your bearded dragon. That's why you want a temp gun, and you want some thermometers, because you're going to be checking the basking spot, which is where the dragon's going to be sitting, because that's where the beam of light is hitting the rock. But it's also going to create ambient air heat. And on the hot side, you want it to be like between 90 and stuff like that. I have those care guides, but how I measure that is these digital thermometers. Digital is always the way to go. They work very well. The classic ones with the needle, you know what I'm talking about? The ones with like the needle and it's like moving. I don't know what it's on mercury or something, but it's like from the 1800s. It's like what we used when the Mayflower come around. You know what I mean? Like the Christopher Columbus type stuff, man. F that. You don't want that. You don't want that Christopher Columbus type stuff, man. You want some thermometers digital. Digital is the way to go. I use Govee. I get them on Amazon. I see some of them same price sold at PetSmart. You get those as well if you want to. But digital thermometers are way more accurate and more trustworthy. The ones I use have the temperature and humidity for the same price as PetSmart. So that's why I like to use those. Humidity, you can learn about that in my other care guides if you want, but those are pretty much it for the electronics. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. If you have any other questions, you can drop those in the comments, and I have all other videos about bearded dragons. I will link those in the description. I will see you next time.